Welcome to the Displaced DieHards podcast, recorded live at 2420 Studios in Owensboro, Kentucky. Check us out, as always, at www.displaceddiehards.com. Download the podcast also on iTunes, and check us out on Twitter at DieHards Podcast. Yippee-ki-yay.
Displaced DieHards.
Displaced DieHards.
I am a Displaced DieHard.
I am a Displaced DieHard.
We are Displaced DieHards.
Welcome to episode number 9 of the Displaced DieHards NFL podcast. We are coming to you from the 2420 Studios in Owensboro, Kentucky. You can now watch us every single Saturday night at 10 p.m. on Time Warner Cable, Channel 72. You can also listen to us weekly at www.displaceddiehards.com. I'm your host, playing the part of beautiful Bobby Eaton, because I'm oh so beautiful, Mr. Stephen A. Turner, alongside my tag team partner, playing the part of Stan Lane, because he's just too sweet, Mr. Brandon Ward.
Woo!
And since he walked in the studio carrying a tennis racket today, fearless leader behind the big board will be playing the part of James E. Cornett, Mr. Ill Bill Hardesty. Also, not to forget, our TV editor playing the role of the unknown member of the Midnight Express, Dennis Condry, Mr. Roger Turner.
Who?
This week, we're going to review all the games from Week 2, talk a little bit about fantasy football. We're going to give our predictions on Week 3, good and bad. We'll be joined by several of our colorful correspondents. But in the meantime, before the clock strikes midnight, Mr. Ward, what's crack-a-lackin'?
There was some injuries crack-a-lacking. Some knees and ankles were crack-a-lacking. Starting off, number one had a hip injury, Ray Rice. That looks like he might be out for 2 to 4 weeks possibly.
Yeah, he hadn't really looked real good anyway. I think Pierce has looked better than him in the first couple games anyway.
Yeah, I think the multitude of carries he's had over the last few years starting to catch up with him. I mean, he's a small guy. He takes a lot of hits. It's almost like Maurice Jones-Drew in Jacksonville. I think the hits are starting to equate.
Yeah, another running back went down too. Steven Jackson. Like I said, he looks like he's 70, and now he's on the injured list. So.
All you fantasy owners that drafted Steven Jackson, the count tried to warn you. Said he looked older than himself.
That's right. So you better get on the market and pick up Jason Snelling, because he'll be taking his spot. Of course, Jacquizz Rodgers is probably already snatched up in most leagues, but.
Yeah, Snelling actually looked like the better running back whenever
Snelling never gets any love. He never gets any love. He always puts up good numbers.
Yeah, he's that one guy on the team that they just take for granted, and they put him in there whenever they absolutely need him, and he puts up stats. Bill Belichick loves those guys.
Yeah, speaking of Belichick, we'll go ahead and get into the results from week number 2. Patriots and the Jets. It's a game we all thought was going to be a beatdown, and it turned out to be a pretty good defensive battle.
Yeah, and it was raining a lot. You had to test the weather a little bit. It was a horrible game to watch. I mean, they picked it to be the Thursday night national spotlight game, and it was hard to sit through even as a hardcore football fan. I was ready to turn the channel and even watch like TNA Impact or something.
Yeah, we went out to watch the game at the bar, and I almost fell asleep. It was bad. The most entertaining part of the game was Brady about ready to kill all of his wide receivers that couldn't run a route or catch or didn't know how to adjust to a deep ball.
Brady's got nobody at this point.
Nobody.
You got to question why they didn't bring back Danny Woodhead and Wes Welker. I mean, it was only a couple $1 million. I mean, Danny Woodhead's making $1.75 million this year. You can't tell me that he wouldn't be worth that in gold.
Yeah, Welker too. I mean, that guy's
they were off
beast.
$1 million on the contract.
That doesn't make any sense at all. And for an organization that gets praised for their personnel moves, I mean, it's like they're immune to being questioned about their personnel moves. That's a huge questionable move that, to my opinion, could take them out of being a contender in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, Belichick's made a lot, and the Patriots in general have made a lot. I mean, the two guys they gave the money to, one guy's sitting in jail on murder charges, and the other guy's had like 17 surgeries this offseason.
Yeah, and they're banking on him coming back this week. I'm still holding my breath on that one. But on the flip to the other side, the Jets, you have to be somewhat impressed with what they're doing, considering how bad I thought they were going to be. I mean, their defense is playing good enough to win.
Considering everybody thought they were a horrible team anyways, and then you got a second-round quarterback being your starter and the only option you really have at quarterback right now. I think he's came out and looked a lot better. Jets fans got to be happy, at least if nothing else, of what they've seen from Geno Smith. You got to question the offensive coordinator in that game, Marty Morningwig, who I'm an Eagles fan. We've tried to warn you about that. All they're going to do is throw the ball. They were putting that rookie in way too many situations.
And they have way too many good running backs to be doing that.
They were running the ball efficiently in a 7-point game, and had Geno Smith out there running offense like Tom Brady would in the fourth quarter. That's why he had 3 interceptions. You got to blame that on the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to our awesome correspondent at Connecticut Correctionals.
We mentioned them earlier in the podcast, so of course our phones started buzzing from Connecticut Correctional. Here's Aaron Hernandez with his hit of the week.
Yo, what's cracking? It's the tight end that might make your life in. Aaron Hernandez checking in on the Displaced DieHards podcast to give you my hit of the week for week 2 in the NFL. Now, my hit of the week is going to go to the Miko Ryans on Malcolm Floyd, assisted by Nate Allen. This is almost like an execution-style hit, you know what I'm saying? Nate Allen held Floyd's arms so he couldn't do anything while the Miko Ryans applied the hit. Floyd left the stadium on a stretcher in an ambulance, just like my victims do. That's how you know you a hit man, when the victim leaving in an ambulance. Now, granted, Malcolm Floyd will live to see another day, unlike my victims, who are all on permanent IR. We can't all be Hall of Famer hitmen like me. Big ups to the Miko and Nate for trying. That's going to bring this segment to a close for the first edition of Aaron Hernandez's Hit of the Week. This is the PCP Pro Bowler, Aaron Hernandez, signing off, sending it back to Stephen Ward in the Displaced DieHards podcast studio, saying, aye, aye.
Thank you, Aaron Hernandez, for your report from Connecticut Correctional. His first hit of the week goes to Nate Allen and D'Amico Ryans, who double-teamed a hit on Malcolm Floyd and left him on a stretcher, and he said he loves whenever people leaves on ambulances.
Wow, yeah, Malcolm Floyd is in some bad shape from what I hear, but right now let's go ahead and get out to Carolina and Buffalo, a game that I predicted
a franchise that's been in bad shape for about 20 years now, the Buffalo Bills, but looks like they might have it turning around these days.
Yeah, they have something in E.J. Manuel. I was very impressed at the end of that game to lead a game-winning drive like that against a defense like the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, like we said many times, the Panthers got a great defense out there, and whenever you're a rookie quarterback, you come in and lead a drive-winning, game-winning game. I mean, you've seen Emmanuel's emotions on the field. That brings confidence to a rookie quarterback, unlike anything else.
That was
he
very
knows
impressive.
He can do it.
Very impressive. The last play of the game there, where they scored the touchdown, it was a hell of a throw, unbelievable throw under pressure. And
that's what they've been missing all these few years. Whenever they've actually hung in games with the Patriots and with the Dolphins and other division rivals like that, and then they always seem to lose in the fourth quarter.
They did it week 1. They hung in there with the Patriots the whole game and then blew it right at the end. But you flip it over to the other side, and a quarterback that's good at that is Cam Newton. Again, just not. I mean, the defense is playing winning football. The offense has got to find some sort of identity.
I'm going to start calling Cam Newton Greg the Hammer Valentine because he was infamous for not starting until about 15 minutes into a match. And Cam Newton's like that. He takes the first quarters off, and then their team's trailing, and it takes him out of his rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, we said all along if they can get a running game going with D'Angelo Williams, I mean, they're giving him a chance to be the back there. It's just not.
He's actually the 5th leading rusher in the league right now, so, I mean, you can't blame him for not committing to the run.
It's Cam. I mean, Cam has got to step up and lead this team. If he does not, then it's over with. I mean, Ron Rivera won't make it through the season. He won't even make it through October if they don't figure out a way to get it straightened out.
For Cam's part, though, Steve Smith's like 63, and he's his only legit.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of.
Weapon.
He doesn't have a lot of receiving weapons.
They've got to
go. Have Greg Olsen.
Yeah, whenever your best receiver is probably one or two. Well, I would say Steve Smith's still his best receiver. He's still their best weapon and threat. I mean, whenever he's a year or two away from retirement, and he's your best option. That's never good. I mean. Wide receivers need speed in this league the way he's built, and that's the first thing you lose when you start aging.
Yeah, when you're a team like Carolina and you play good defense and you want to keep the game on the ground, you've got to make the plays at the end. They just let it get away from them. Buffalo stole
I don't think they have that
underneath them.
I don't think they have that consistent third down wide receiver that you can look to like Jason Avant is on Philly.
Yeah, but you would think Cam could be making some plays with his legs on third down more than I've seen. It seems like this year he's sticking in the pocket a little bit more.
Seems like all those running quarterbacks are this year. I think all the talk of how defenses are going to guard the pistol option by just hitting the quarterback is really taking a lot of the quarterback's running mental out of them.
Yes, that's a definite possibility. Heading down to the Georgia Dome, the Falcons took it big lead early in the game against the Rams, and then almost threw it away in classic Atlanta Falcons style.
Put it in retreat mode for the second half, like they tend to do with a lot of. Always do it with weaker opponents. Whenever they play better opponents, they play up to that level, but they always let the weaker opponents stick around when they shouldn't. I mean, they come out early and establish that they're a dominant team, and then they just kind of put it into coast mode.
Yeah, I don't understand it at all. I mean, they're up 31-3 or something like that at halftime, and then I look at the score. I'm watching the Vikings game. I look at the score in the fourth quarter, and the Rams are within a touchdown of tying the game up. So they really let it get away from them. I'm sure the count was sweating it.
Yeah, the count had threatened suicide possibly if Atlanta didn't get off the schneid this week.
He refused to count last week, so that's not good.
So thankfully, we won't be explaining about the count suicide to the Atlanta Falcons since they got the big win. Sam Bradford continues to look better, like we said, with Jeff Fisher as his head coach. He kind of reeled him in and made him the quarterback that he needs to be. Yeah,
if he can continue to play like he is, look out. The Rams could be in the playoff race at this point. That's all they really needed was Bradford to step up. They have a great defense.
They got Tavon Austin involved more this week. Got him in the end zone, and then
we haven't called. We tried to call his name a lot in the preseason, and we finally have a reason to talk about him. He did score 2 touchdowns. He only had 47 yards receiving, but the 2 touchdowns stands out.
I think the question there is replacing Steven Jackson. Daryl Richardson looked like a solid back the first week, and like we said, you got to once he's on tape, you got to see how he's going to perform after that. And then, I mean, he had a less than stellar performance. It's going to be him and Isaiah Peed still.
Yeah, that's the thing about the NFL. It's just from week to week, nothing stays the same. I mean, unless you're Peyton Manning or Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers or somebody like that, you pretty much you have to just keep an eye on things every week. It's just that's what makes fantasy football so difficult. Like I had James Jones week 1, he gets me 0, and then this week I put him on the bench and he gets me 29. It's just
that's always going to do that. Just like Mike Wallace, we warned you about Mike Wallace because he was beefing with the offensive coordinator. And then
he goes out and just blows it up.
Has like 17 receptions in the first quarter.
It's
I'm like,
very
that
hard.
wasn't good.
Very hard to predict. I mean, you can do the best you can, but you just never can tell. And week to week in the NFL, things change so much.
Thankfully, one thing that changed is the count's no longer on suicide watch, so we're going to go ahead and kick it to Atlanta and see what he thought about the game.
It's me, the Count. Reporting on my Atlanta Falcons after week number 1. 2. Now you may be happy to learn that the Count did not have to take a walk in the sun or impale himself on any crosses. But instead, I took a fly with my grandson, head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, Mike Smith. A lot of Falcons fans are worried about the health of the team. Mr. Witherspoon and Mr. Bitterman both experienced horrible injuries. However, my grandson assures me that the defense will not miss a beat. Also, 74-year-old running back Steven Jackson has finally gone down. But never fear, for the Count predicted this would happen. Look for the quiz, Jacquizz Rodgers, to pick up the slack. And don't sleep on my boy Jason Snelling, for he may be the best running back in Atlanta. Right now, the Count is packing his bags and ready to take a flight to South Beach, where my Falcons will travel to face the Miami Dolphins this week. Sorry, Dolphins fans, but the Falcons are going to roll big. I look for them to win by not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns. Enjoy week number 3. We'll see you next week.
All right, thank you, Count. He's a little more upbeat this week than last week. No impaling himself on crosses or walking in the sun, bathing in holy water, anything like that. He seems to be a little bit more upbeat about the Falcons this week.
Yeah, good to hear. I was worried about the Count going
I was too.
This week.
Good to hear him counting again. But let's go ahead and take it up to Lambeau Field, where the
one of your
Packers,
favorite places on earth.
That's right, it is. I love vacationing there. The Packers fans absolutely love me as well. But Green Bay totally just took it to the Redskins. The Redskins look awful.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay, you expect Aaron Rodgers to go in there and carve that defense up. I think this is more of a referendum of Washington Redskins defense and their offense. Their their offense hasn't scored whenever a defense is trying to stop them, other
No.
than whenever they're playing against a zone defense. It's just
0 first half points. 0.
Yeah, well, they've scored 7, and that was from the
Yeah,
defense.
offensively.
So the
yeah,
offense,
that's correct.
Bob Griffin has scored you the same amount of points in the first half as I have at quarterback for you this year.
Yeah, he's not.
Chew
not,
on that, Washington.
Yeah, he's not 100%. I mean, this
I'm
whole.
sorry to tell you.
No, I mean, we said it all along. I mean, he's not. As a quarterback, you have to be confident throwing off your leg, and the weight change and all. I mean, it's
He's
mechanics.
He's immediately coming off that knee as soon as he releases the ball.
Oh yeah, he's selling balls. He's coming up short on balls. I mean, he's just not confident at all, and you can't play that way in the NFL. They'll catch up with you.
And like I said from day one, whenever they said they were going to use Bob as a normal quarterback in the pocket, I was like, he's not going to be able to do that either, because the thing that made him a good quarterback was whenever he had the threat of running and opened up passing windows he could hit. He can't hit normal passing windows like Aaron Rodgers and other quarterbacks of that caliber. I mean,
he has to draw the D up and then throw it.
Try to make him a passing quarterback just sitting back there in the pocket. He's going to be very mediocre.
Yeah, and it's affected the whole team. But it's not just that. I mean, their defense looks terrible as well. I mean, just absolutely terrible.
Yeah, their defense. Whenever you go out there and give up 30 points in the first half, I mean, it's going to affect your offense, obviously.
And I mean, they have played two of the better offenses in the league, in Philly and Green Bay.
Well, I mean, as far as we know, but that could only be because the Redskins' defense has made them look that way.
That's very true. They had a good defense last year, so it's I don't understand it. When you're going 3 and out on offense every time, though, and you're not getting any rhythm on offense, it definitely affects your D. And as of right now, I mean, another performance this week, and they played Denver this week. Another performance like the first two, and fans are gonna start asking, where's Kirk Cousins?
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
Tony Dungy on national TV is already asking where Kirk Cousins is. And I mean, you're eventually losses are gonna make that bandwagon get bigger and bigger. I mean. That's what I tried to warn them, bring him back too early, and you're going to get this, especially when you got a decent backup quarterback. He's always the most popular guy in the town when you're losing.
And I don't think that necessarily they're calling for him permanently. I just think it's a situation where they're going to want him healthy. I mean, obviously he's not 100%
until RG3 can be RG3. But the thing is, I don't think RG3 wants to be RG3 anymore. And I know his dad doesn't want to. He came out in media saying he doesn't want to run. His
career is going to be very short if he decides he doesn't want to run the ball anymore, because he's never going to be a guy that's going to sit back there and in the pocket and throw. He's a read option quarterback.
Yeah, we've seen that guy. He was kind of Vince Young.
That's what I mean. You have to be what you are at this point. I mean, he lit the world on fire last year. Why he would not want to be that again? I mean, he didn't get injured. He didn't injure his knee being a read option quarterback. He injured his knee on a horrible turf,
being out there when he already had a sprained MCL and was risking it because it was a playoff game. And I mean, that you got to put that on him and the coach. You can't say that was because it was a run option quarterback. No. If Aaron Rodgers had that injury or Tom Brady had that injury, they would have still went down just like he did because he slipped on bad turf with a bad knee.
You got to be who you are. And when you're a guy like RG3 who, like I said, he set the world on fire. He came into the league and took it by storm. You can't change who you are and expect success, especially on a bad knee. So they're going to have to ratchet that up pretty quick. And as far as Green Bay goes, I mean, Jordy Nelson, those guys that were supposed to be slowed by injuries, they don't look slowed at all to me. Nelson looks back full force.
I don't think anybody playing the Washington defenses looks slow at all for injury or any other purpose.
It's hard to judge, but yeah,
to judge with Washington D. They've looked back. Their front seven's all right. They're back four. Their defensive backfield's in a battle with the Philadelphia Eagles right now for the worst in the league.
Yeah, it looks bad. D'Angelo Hall got embarrassed in this game several times, that's fine with me because I can't stand D'Angelo Hall. But
speaking of a team you can't stand, let's move it on to Chicago. I know this was a tough loss for you.
Oh, yeah.
Your Vikings took on Chicago.
Yeah, I probably sound a little unprepared this week because as this game turned, I went into the game with fairly low expectations because we don't play well at Soldier Field. It's a tough place to play anytime. Even in '98, when we only lost one game, and we were a far superior team, we struggle to win at Soldier Field. It's just how it is. It's a divisional game on the road at a tough place to play. I had very low expectations coming in, and the Vikings do what the Vikings do to me. They played horribly in the first half and kept me not really caring. And
they ruin your Sundays.
And then the second half they come out and they're like, you got to care. So we're going to play excellent football for 29 minutes, and then that last minute we're going to kick you right in the balls and leave you laying for the rest of your Sunday and an entire weekend. And you don't even want to watch football or talk about it anymore. So that's pretty much what happened to me.
And surprisingly, after 30 years of this, it still
happens.
Still affects you the same.
Oh, it still happens.
Yeah,
I mean, it happens.
Still fall for it.
But the thing about it is, they've changed the way they F me. They've changed the way they do it to me. They totally do it in a different way. You know, when I was younger, and
when you think you have the answers, they change the questions.
Oh, absolutely. What they did back then is they would just reel me in with like decent teams, and I would get pumped. I'd be like, okay, we're gonna win this week. I was optimistic all the time, and then 98 happened. The Falcons game happened, and then I had to change. They had to change it up. And then actually, they didn't. That didn't really steer me away too much. I got to 2000, and then we got beat 42-0 in the NFC Championship game by a team that was less talented than we were, 42-0. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that'll sting.
And then I guess I still had a little bit of that. I'm still hanging in there, and then the Cardinals knock us out of the playoffs. I don't know what was the record that year. They won like 3 games. Nate Poole the year that happened, and then I was absolutely like on suicide watch. So at that point, they had to change how they screwed with me. So what they would do is I would have a very low expectation for every single game and just automatically assume the loss. And they would play really well for a period of time to get me to where I actually wanted to win the game.
Give you some optimism.
Yeah, right. And then they just crapped on me at that point and figured out a way to lose right at the end. Like reference 2009 NFC Championship. So here we are Sunday, and the same thing happens again. And the whole season I've been saying we're not playing Minnesota Viking football. We're not taking care of the ball. We're not playing solid defense. We're not putting Ponder in positions to succeed. Everybody's down on Ponder, but the guy has been facing in the first game and a half, through the first half of the Chicago game, they were putting him in 3rd and 13s and 3rd and 14s. They're handing the ball off to Peterson twice up the middle. I mean, everybody's like, well, what's wrong with Peterson? Well, you can't just give him the ball up the middle every time. The play calling has been awful. And then Ponder doesn't convert a 3rd and 14. He throws a bad ball, and they're like, well, what's wrong with Ponder? Looks awful. Well, obviously he looks awful. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not Tom Brady. He can't make those plays. You're not putting him in the 3rd and 2s and the 3rd and 4s to succeed where he can, dump it off to the tight end. Like I said, we're not going to be a down-the-field offense. And then, they go in the locker room, and I'm like, you know what, screw this. It is what it is. We're going 0-2, and that's just all there is to it. But the defense kept us in the game. They kept making plays. And we came out in the second half, and the offensive line showed up. The offensive line from last year finally decided to come to play this year, and we dominated the Bears on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Robeson and Jared Allen both had fantastic games. They graded out very high this week as far as defensive ends go. And we started to take over the game. We were doing what we needed to do. The only thing is that right there at the end, when we had a chance to put them away, we didn't. And Cutler just marched right down the field, and kicked me right in the gut. So that it is what it is.
So I know you don't think so, but Jerome Felton not being around to help out AP with the blocks.
Oh, definitely.
He's an all-pro caliber fullback.
Yeah.
Do you think that's playing in a little bit to the offensive
definitely.
line? You think the offensive line's not looking as dominant as they were because you don't have Felton out there opening up holes for AP?
Well, I think that might be some of it. I definitely think it doesn't help, but I think that. I didn't really notice Felton being gone. The offensive line was just getting whipped. I mean, that's all there is to it. Khalil wasn't looking the same. Sullivan hasn't been playing up to his, best center in the league title. And then, like I said, I watched the game very closely, and I'm very critical of the team. And when we came out in the second half and we started dominating the line of scrimmage, that's when I was like, we're playing Viking football right now. We are dictating what we're going to do to them, and we're just making them take it. And AP became more successful when Ponder was able to throw the ball on first down, and get in position to succeed. And he started converting third downs. You put him in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, and all of a sudden, he converts like 7 third downs in a row. That's not a mistake. It's a fact. He can't convert 3rd and 13s.
Like we said, he's not somebody that does well under pressure. You want him to have a set play that he knows he can look to get 3 to 4 yards. You don't want him back there trying to make time for defensive pressure coming on him, because that's when he goes and makes bad decisions and turnovers. I'd rather have somebody that you can see with Kansas City, Alex Smith hasn't been turning the ball over, and they're doing fine. It's just if you put them in that position.
Yeah, that's what you're going to ask him to do, and they're not giving him a fair chance.
You got to make Christian Ponder and Alex Smith. That's who you want him to model himself after. He's never going to be any more than that. He's Christian Ponder. He doesn't have an NFL arm. He doesn't have a Cam Newton, Michael Vick arm. He's Christian Ponder. He's a game manager. And if he can be Alex Smith and then you've got a good defense and a dominant runner,
right.
That's
it.
That's your formula for success in Minnesota, in my opinion.
Absolutely. You play good up front, and that's how you're going to – I mean, the thing about it is people were asking me who you're down on this week. Well, which players, I'm not really down. I mean, the middle linebacker is an obvious situation, a glaring hole. Aaron Henderson got burned several times on that final drive, and he got burned several times in the Detroit game, and the transition's not going real smoothly on that part. But I mean,
important downs in the NFL now are so in the middle. If you don't have linebackers that can cover well, your defense is just lost out there. Safeties and linebackers have become almost as important as cornerbacks whenever it comes to pass coverage.
But I'm not. Other than that, I mean, I thought Ponder played one of his best halves I've ever seen him make. I mean, he was throwing balls on dimes in tough spots. Third downs. He was converting some. He threw a ball to Jennings about as good as a throw as I've ever seen him throw right there towards the end of the game. So I'm not. I mean, I have a lot of good things to take away from this game. 0-2 is not the end of the world if we can turn it. We have 3 winnable games coming up in a row. And I think if we can build on that.
Haven't both Vikings games been on the road
they
so
have.
far? So.
Both divisional road games. So that's tough, but it's even more tough when there's a game you have right in the palm of your hands, and then you in the last 11 seconds you let it get away from you. It sucks.
That's how the Vikings do things, but we got another guy that knows how Vikings do things around here. It's the Viking warrior Odinson. Let's get his thoughts on the game.
Thou wishes to know Sir Odin's thoughts on the game? Thou thoughts? Here are some thoughts. One point? How does one allow them to score but with only 10 seconds upon my clock? How is it possible? Handle! Open thy Bifrost, and take thou and thy warrior 3 straight to Soldier Field so that they might burn that unholy place till nothing is left but scorched earth.
Wow, thank you, Odinson, for your report on the Vikings. Sounds like he's taking that loss about as well as you are.
Yeah, I'd say most Vikings fans are in the same boat as we are, me and Odinson.
Speaking of fans, going to move it on to fat-ass Andy Reid. As you know, I'm a lifelong Philly fan. He's almost been the coach for the majority of my life, and now he played the other arch rival that I have, Dallas Cowboys. So I was
That's
cheering.
A lose-lose for you.
I was
a win-win.
I was cheering for both sidelines to blow up personally, but that didn't happen. But other than that, the best thing happened, and KC won the game. And since the Eagles are in Dallas's division, that's what's best for us.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, when I picked the Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC East here, I didn't know that Bill Callahan was going to run the ball like 12 times. I mean,
I tried to warn you not to drink that Cowboy Kool-Aid.
I mean, one of the whole reasons why I got behind Dallas is because Callahan's calling the plays now, not Jason Garrett. And to me, Jason Garrett's still calling the plays because
look like it.
Why are you not running the ball more? This is ridiculous.
That's what I've been asking for years with Fat Ass's teams. I mean, it looks like he's actually figured out a good way to use Jamal Charles. Like I said, I think he's going to play perfectly into Brian Westbrook's role like he did for Fat Ass's Phillies teams, and that's what he's done so far.
Well, I mean, Kansas City has the talent. We said it over and over and over again. Kansas City has the talent, and Andy Reid, he knows how to win games in the regular season anyway. So
I felt very bad. I felt very bad, very dirty for cheering for Andy Reid to beat the Cowboys. Like I said,
he knows how to do it.
It was better for the Eagles.
It
was better for the Eagles for the Chiefs to win. So that's strictly the only reason I was cheering for his fat ass to win. But this week it's Reid week in Philly. On Thursday, Reid comes back to Philly.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But I saw an interview on NFL Network with several Eagles players. And they all seem to, I know maybe they're just putting on a show, but Vic and Shady McCoy especially seem to have a lot of love for Andy Reid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's always a player coach. I mean, they don't have anything against him or anything. I just think he was a horrible coach the last 5 years in Philly. He had kind of lost his desire and just kind of ran on auto mode.
It's going to be interesting to have him come back. Aren't they retiring D-Mac's jersey?
Yep, Donovan McNabb's jersey's getting retired. His fat ass's quarterback for his most tenure in Philly, at least the most successful part of his tenure.
So basically, it's going to be like a Kansas City home game.
Yeah, what I hope is McNabb gets cheered and Reed gets booed, but I think it might be the other way around in Philly. For some reason, McNabb's got a bad stigma to him in Philly, but I appreciate what he's
I'll
done
boo
for
his
him.
ass too at this point. I used to love McNabb, man, but
he did play horrible for the Vikings.
It's not that.
He had like
It's not-
34 yards in the first week. In the first
it's not
game.
even that. I can't even blame him for playing. He was what he was at that point. I mean, he played horrible for Washington, and we still gave him a shot. But it's just his opinions that rubbed me the wrong way. But
I think that's what most Philly fans don't like about him is his opinions on things and the way he conducted business. He kind of took on the Andy Reid nonchalant, not really caring. Things didn't affect him, or he didn't show him that it affected him.
Yeah, and in big games, he seemed to just not take it as seriously as you would want him to take it. Of course, I don't know if he took it as seriously as we do, he probably would have committed suicide in those 4 NFC Championship games. But
yeah, well, he was throwing up in the Super Bowl. That's about as emotional as he got in Philly. He couldn't hide that. I mean, as soon as he did it, T.O. called him out, and every Philly fan jumped on that and hated him ever since.
That's true. Going to the game, like I said, I was so depressed I didn't catch much of the games this week. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare myself very well.
He was on suicide watch with the count.
I was, man. I was in bad shape, but I noticed that Romo, hooked up with. You can't just depend on Romo and Dez to get it. You've got to have a balanced attack.
Jason Witten was lost in that game. I know in PPR leagues he scored 4 points, and Jason Witten rarely scores under 15 in PPR
That's unusual.
leagues. That's
very unusual. It's a red flag right off the bat for Dallas. This is a game. If Dallas is going to be that team that I thought they had potential to be, this is a game they should have won.
Dallas is that kid that's got a new toy. They've got Dez Bryant who can catch 30, 40-yard spectacular touchdowns, and what it's going to do, instead of using that as they should, they're just going to overuse it.
Oh, yeah,
and just
that's what they're doing.
Burn it into the ground and forget about their small game. They're going to forget about the running. They're going to forget about Jason Witten. They're going to forget about under the middle, and they're just going to look to big plays. That's how Dallas rolls. That's how they've always rolled. It's like I think Jerry Jones is calling the plays.
Yeah, you have to run the ball to be successful. So we'll keep an eye on that situation. But moving on to Andrew Luck's Indianapolis Colts. They hosted the Miami Dolphins, a game that I picked the Dolphins to. Actually, I got one right here. I picked the Dolphins to win this game, and they came through.
Dolphins look like they're the most talented team in the AFC East. The Patriots have nobody for Tom Brady to throw to. Tom Brady's tearing his own hair out in New England. And, I mean, Miami's brought in everybody for Tannehill.
They won the offseason, and now they're winning in the regular season.
That rarely
actually
happens.
kind of working a little bit.
That rarely happens. That's the Eagles' dream team and any Dan Snyder Redskins team.
I mean, but Tannehill's the reason why that their defense is actually playing pretty well, but Tannehill is the real reason why they're being successful. I mean, he's
progressing like a second-year quarterback.
He
you
is.
want. He's came in the second year, and he's a better, more complete quarterback than he was in the first year. And I mean, that's all you can ask for a young quarterback. Everybody was judging him against the RG3 Andrew Luck curve last year and saying he was a disappointment. You got to give a guy 3-4 years before you know what you've got.
Yeah, any other year, Tannehill comes out as a first-round quarterback, and he's going to be the most successful first-round quarterback in the draft. And he just unfortunately came out in a year where 3 guys came out that were just, anomalies. You just don't see that.
People were praising
often.
E.J. Manuel this year. I mean, and Tannehill.
Yeah.
Tannehill came into the league and played better than that, and they were dissing him.
Yeah,
it was just the equation of having Andrew Luck and RG3 and Russell Wilson out there.
Yeah, I did catch a little of this game. I noticed that Luck was very elusive, and Miami should have had quite a bit more sacks than they did, but he is, for being a guy as big as he sure is athletic back there.
They lost Vic Ballard.
That's a loss.
Midweek at practice, he blew out his knee. I think that's a huge loss for them.
It is.
Bradshaw is injury prone and limited.
Yeah, they're definitely going to need to be looking for a back somewhere that can help them out.
Vic Ballard, I had him on my fantasy team last year, so I was watching him down the stretch. He had the potential to be a top 10 running back in the league. He had good power, good speed, and he could catch the ball out of the backfield. And you've got that in a poor man's version now with Ahmad Bradshaw, and eventually he'll be injured and he'll be down to Donald Brown. Like it seems like
Donald Brown.
Seems like the Colts have been for 17 years now.
Yeah, you remember back to last season, Vic Ballard made some flash plays for him to actually win him some ball games, and to lose him, it is a big blow. But I think Miami was just a better team. Indianapolis several close games last year.
I don't like their decision to bring in a different play caller and one that's totally different from the style that was successful for him last year.
I don't understand that either.
I mean, if it's successful, at least stay with something similar to that formula. Don't go and totally recreate it. Just ask the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger how that's working.
It's like they're trying to regress back to Stanford. They're wanting to run the Stanford offense with all the Stanford players, and
he did just fine last year.
Yeah,
in pro
let
offense.
him be what he is.
Let him go.
I mean, I don't understand that much, but you have to be impressed with Miami 2-0 on the road. I mean, Cleveland's not the greatest team in the world, but to win, in Cleveland, it's never an easy place to play. And to go to a playoff team in Indianapolis and get the win 2-0, you keep an eye on the Dolphins. I really think they can. I think they can compete with the Patriots until the Patriots get somebody that can catch the ball.
Well, speaking of Cleveland, we're going to go ahead and keep it moving. Go with the Cleveland Browns versus Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, the Cleveland Browns. I'm just shaking my head. I have this guy's in the playoffs, and thank you, Cleveland, for making me look like a genius.
Now you know why LeBron left there.
Yeah.
Always let you down.
Whedon's going to be leaving there pretty soon if he doesn't get it straightened out.
Whedon's actually left there this week because I've heard he's got a broken thumb, and he's more than likely not going to play this week.
It's one of those things where you just look at it on paper, and the guy put up, he threw for some yards last year, and you think, well, Norv Turner's there, maybe they can put it together. They have a solid defense, and it's just not coming together for him there. The weapon, he just doesn't have a lot of weapons, and we did highlight that in the preseason.
Josh Gordon, of course, suspended, so I mean that's
a big blow.
That's your primary weapon.
Cameron
right there.
is all they have, and he's producing like he's all they have. I mean, Richardson is not. He's just not living up to the hype.
He's not a workforce back like AP or somebody that you only need just him. You need a change of pace speed guy out there that can catch some passes out of the backfield and take them big plays to the house. Richardson's somebody that needs those open holes from the offensive line to make. He can't make his own plays. You need that change of pace back like a Darren Sproles or somebody like that.
Yeah, exactly. He's not. He's definitely not proven to be worth the pick they spent on him that high in the draft.
Seems like a lot of Alabama running backs are. I mean, you got to look. The whole Alabama offensive line ends up getting drafted first in the NFL draft. So I mean,
that's a good point.
He's got an NFL offensive line that he's running behind, playing 19 and 20-year-old college players. So, of course, he's going to look dominant.
When he was most successful at Alabama, too, if you're an NCAA fan, he was a different kind of back than he is now. He was shifty and small, and and he was a lot quicker. And when he started to get towards his junior and senior year at Alabama, I mean, he was obviously still effective in college, but he was a completely different running back. To me, I thought he was better when he was smaller and shifty. And
he bulked up to get like more NFL caliber running back and kind of hurt himself in the NFL game. I think the game shifted so much since then. Like it used to be about that one power running back that can go out there and get you 30 carries a game, but now it's about speed and passing to be able to keep up with the scoring of the passing teams.
Yeah, and you flip it over to Baltimore, and their offense just isn't getting the job done.
Ray Rice goes down with a hip injury. That's going to hurt them.
They just don't have any, like we've said it about several other teams, the weapons around Flacco. He just doesn't have a lot of support there. It's
more and more
not helping him out.
Every game that goes by, you see more and more reason why they shouldn't have traded Bolden for like a sixth round. You shouldn't have traded Bolden for a second-round pick, let alone a sixth-round pick. The guy that you drafted with that pick is probably not even on your team anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame. Baltimore, and then no one ever foresaw their tight ends going down. That was a big blow as well. So, they're just gonna have to ratchet it up. And I'm sure that Harbaugh is a hell of a coach. I'm sure. He'll do everything he can to get it put together.
Newsom's a hell of a GM, we've always stated. So
they won't be down for long.
Yeah, they won't be down for long unless the Joe Flacco contract, unless he just plays so under what he did last year that they've overpaid him and kind of salary cap issued themselves for the next 5 years. I mean, if that comes along to where he can't be a Super Bowl winning caliber quarterback, then they're stuck with him. But other than that, Ozzie Newsome will get it back together.
Yeah, one thing it's highlighting is that Flacco is. I mean. It's hard to say.
He can't do it himself.
It's hard to say he's not worth the money because quarterbacks. I would take Joe Flacco on the Vikings in a New York second.
Would you take him with that salary?
With that, to be honest with you, he's probably worth it to me. That's what I was about to bring up the point. He's obviously not a guy that can carry an entire team, but
it's kind of like what we were saying with the Packers having to pay Aaron Rodgers, and once you have to pay Aaron Rodgers and Clay Matthews like they did, the rest of their team is going to deteriorate. Right. I'd rather have a good team.
Yeah, it's hard to say because the quarterbacks are it's like Romo, it's hard. You don't ever want to go back to that, Quincy Carter.
I'm definitely not paying somebody that's won one playoff game $100 million.
You don't want to go
question Romo.
Quincy Carter and those guys. Or do you want to go with a guy like Romo who puts up, 300-yard games every week? So it's hard to say, is he not worth the money? It depends on how you look at it. When you got a quarterback like, Christian Ponder back there looking like he did in the first game and a half, I'd pay him $100 million in a minute to come play quarterback for me. But he's not the kind of guy that you can put on the field and say, win me games by yourself. He's proven that right now.
Cleveland hasn't had one of those quarterbacks since our favorite correspondent, Drunk Bernie Kosar. I'm going to throw it to him now and see what he thought about his beloved Browns.
Best part of the show.
This is Bernie Kosar, and I am utterly annihilated. We got beat again by Baltimore after being up in the first half. No thanks to you, by the way, Whedon. You bum. I'm done with you, son. Burn me once, singe some hair. Burn me twice, toast my buns. But Bernie, burn me, Bernie. Burn me, Bernie! How about that? I like it. Huh? What? Oh! Piss on you, Whedon, you piece of shit! Hoyer, you're in, kid. Let's get it done, son. You and Richardson, get out there and wreck shop. We're gonna take... What? We did what? For who? For a draft pick? You gotta be shitting me. We traded Richardson to the Colts for a draft pick? Son of a bitch. Well, who'd we pick up? McGahee? Willis McGahee? Are you serious? What the hell? We don't get bonus points for having the oldest team in the NFL. Why the hell we don't just see if Jim Brown wants to get back in the game? Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I need a drink. Oh, yeah. That's stiff. Oh, it's good. Good. Well, so now we're playing Sam and Ricky's Vikings, who've looked about as special as a short bus this year. Hey, Pete, how's that 2,500-yard season coming there, champ? Hey, Vikings, while we're just giving away our players, you guys want another half-ass quarterback? Maybe you can tie him together with your half-ass quarterback, and together they can complete a pass. Whatever. Anyway, I'm taking the Browns in this one, 6-3. Back to you, Bartleby and Saeed. This is Bernie Kosar for the Displaced DieHards podcast, and I've been drinking.
Well, thank you, Drunk Bernie. Still hanging in there with them Browns. I mean, that's either a homer pick or Goldschlager influence, but he's still there with them.
I'd say it's a little bit of both, mostly Goldschlager, though.
Lots of Goldschlager.
Let's get on to your team. You might have a little interest in this game. The Eagles hosted the Chargers.
Yeah, I was expecting the Eagles to get it done here with San Diego traveling across country, but it's going to be impossible to get anything done with that defensive backfield. Nate Allen shouldn't start for the Apollo High Eagles at this point. He looks like he's never played football in some of those plays. I mean, he's covering people that are already covered and leaving guys wide open in the end zone for touchdowns. I mean, you got to have somebody on the practice squad or bring somebody that's been kicked out of college for smoking too much weed or something and bring them onto the team because they've got to play better than Nate Allen. Nate Allen hurt him. Looked good his rookie year. Looked like he was going to be a decent quarterback. We used him with the much famed McNabb pick. Brought him in. Looked like that was going to be a good luck pick. He had a few interceptions, then injured himself in that game against Minnesota on that icy.
Yeah.
And that icy whenever it was a Tuesday because of all this snow. This is a weird game. He blew out his Achilles, and for some reason his Achilles is attached to his brain because he forgot how to play football since then.
That's going to be the Eagles' Achilles heel is their defense.
No pun intended.
That's right. Their offense looked fantastic again. I mean,
I love the way
very explosive.
I love the way they're using Shady in the offense and Michael Vick's.
Deshaun.
They're using Michael Vick like Michael Vick should be used.
I mean, Phillip Rivers in the first two games has looked great. I mean, except for that little 5-minute stretch in the fourth quarter versus Houston.
That's what I was telling Wes, our Eagles correspondent. He was saying how down he was that we lost to a bunch of scrubs like San Diego, and I was like, well, the week before that, San Diego's offense put up some points on Houston, who has the arguably second best defense in the league. So I mean, maybe San Diego was more legit than what we thought.
Yeah,
here.
I think they're a little more legit than I know I didn't give them any credit. I'll own up to it. I was laughing at their wide receivers, and Eddie Royal stepped in and looked great.
I think it's the coaching philosophy. I think
you pointed that out several times.
I think they were letting Phillip Rivers be too much of a loose cannon out there, and you got somebody that could reel him in now. I mean, he's looked like the Phillip Rivers of old now.
He really has. Like I made a comment earlier that I wish they'd let him hit the open mark. If he keeps playing like he is right now, there's no chance of that happening.
Yeah, he's going to be getting Joe Flacco money if he continues on this streak. I mean, he's had wide receivers keep going down. I mean, his wide receiver Malcolm Floyd, who he had 100 yards with in the first half, went down with a neck injury. By the way, while we're talking about Malcolm Floyd on this neck injury, he fumbled on that play, and just because he laid there almost paralyzed, they never mentioned that he fumbled. Never even brought it up on the telecast. He fumbled on that, and like I don't know if just everybody lost track of that. They never mentioned it on the broadcast. I didn't see any of the Eagles players question it or tell them they need to review it. But I mean, he got hit, dropped the ball. I mean, I'm glad he's all right and everything. Even though I was making fun of him the whole time laying on the field, saying that he fumbled the ball, just get the game going. He fumbled the ball, and nobody even mentioned that.
I mean, that's a question. Unfortunately, we tried to get the ladies' man ref in studio this week, and he is busy with the ladies. So that was a question we were going to ask him, but he's unavailable this week. I can tell you right now, the referees, they've been kind of awful.
There was another questionable call there late in the game. After first down, Michael Vick got knocked down hard on a pass attempt, and the refs said that Michael Vick was injured and had to go out of the game for one play because he was an injured player. Michael Vick got up immediately after that play. He wasn't laying on the field, preventing the game from going on. How can you tell somebody like Michael Vick that he's injured and has to go out of the game? Of course, then we bring in Nick Foles, who throws errant pass to Deshaun Jackson. It totally takes the flow out of our offense. I don't see how the refs can tell an NFL player that you're too hurt. He wasn't even injured. He came in the next play.
I didn't see that. That's.
Oh, me and Wes were livid about it.
That's typical.
Also, Chip Kelly could have called a timeout even after that and burnt the timeout there, and Vic could have came in for that second down instead of Foles. So I mean, even though the refs made the bad call there, Chip Kelly could have wasted a timeout there, which we didn't really need at that point, and he could have used one of those timeouts to get Vic in there. So he's not totally off the hook there either.
Yeah, I mean,
can't get away from bad timing decisions with coaches.
Right. Well, I mean, he's a newer head coach in the NFL. The whole time,
he said he didn't know. He said he didn't know he could do that.
Right, and that,
I was having Donovan McNabb overtime flashbacks there.
Well, I mean that it is what it is. I think that if the Eagles that they can ratchet up to D. I mean, I really that division's wide open. Anybody can win it.
Code Anderson and Earl Wolf are our two backup safeties who have both shown that they're not ready to be starting safeties, but Nate Allen is even less ready to be a starting NFL safety.
Hey, I'm a Colt Anderson guy. He
goes out there and makes plays. He plays hard. He's always where he should be. He's accountable for it. He's a small guy. He can't defend passes as well as he should, but he knows where to be. Unlike Nate Allen. I mean, I'm begging you, put somebody in. Get Brian Dawkins out of retirement. He could come off the couch and play better safety than Nate Allen could.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, they had some trouble in the defensive backfield. Rivers carved them up at will. Like, I would look up at the score. That game, your game was on the same time as mine, and I would look up at the score and literally look down, look back up there, and then, there's more points on the board from either one of the teams. Both teams were scoring pretty much at will.
Yeah, it was more like a Madden game out there. It was like whenever
football.
It was like when me and Bean square off on Madden, just throwing bombs out there. Neither defense could stop either one of them. But I mean, our defense looked more discombobulated than they just don't know how to play, especially our safeties. Our safeties are garbage, and Kerry Williams had like 4 pass interference calls. Like whenever he couldn't guard somebody, he just like punched them.
Yeah. Well, I guess I really don't have a whole lot more to add. You pretty much covered it.
I've got a lot to say about that defense.
It is what it is. I mean, the defense, like we said it since day one, the Eagles will go as far as the defense will take them. The offense won't have any problem. We pretty much hit the nail on the head with Vic being a breakout fantasy guy, Deshaun Jackson, and LaShawn McCoy being studs in that Chip Kelly offense, and they still are. Week 3, we're still looking at them as studs. It's just when you go out there and you give up 40 points, it's going to be hard to win games, no matter how good your offense is.
We'll keep it moving now to a team that San Diego torched the first week, and they have a great defense. Houston Texans taking on the Tennessee Titans in Houston. What did you think about that?
The game pissed me off, to be honest. I've been trying to be down on the Texans all offseason, and they come out and they look exactly like I say they're going to look. They look like they're not as good as they were a year ago, and then somehow or another they find a way to win again in a game when they were on the ropes again against a less talented team.
They're like the good version of the Panthers. Whenever the Panthers are in close games, they always lose them. The Texans always win them.
Find a way to win. And, their kicker did blow several kicks.
I had Ryan Bullock, by the way, in your fantasy league, of course. And I ended up tying because my fantasy kicker got me -1 points.
That's a way.
But he was literally out on the field for like 15 minutes. The first time he attempted, he hit the attempt.
I saw that.
Hit the attempt the first time. The coach did the freeze thing where he had to re-kick it. On the second attempt, the defense jumped off sides, blocked the kick, got in his mind even more. The third kick, the head coach called another timeout to freeze him. And then the fourth kick, which actually meant something, he missed it.
He missed it. That's right. But they still found a way to win. So they overcame their
His damn leg was tired. By then he kicked 4 times.
He couldn't even kick it to the end zone on the kickoff the very next time. But, the Titans have to be, that has to be like a shot in the gut. They pretty much led the entire game, and to give it away right there at the end. They were up 8, and the Texans had to score and then get to 2, and they did.
What you can take positive from Tennessee's side, though, is that's a game for the last few years you've been out of. Like,
oh, yeah.
Whenever you get one of those class teams of the AFC, you've traditionally been out of the game by the third quarter. I mean, at least now you're hanging with them and have a chance to win these games. I mean, when you got to take any kind of positive step you can, especially when you've got a quarterback you're not sure about with Jake Locker.
As a fan, though, you're looking at it and you're thinking, man,
that game.
We just beat Houston and Pittsburgh on the road. We're 2-0 on
playoffs.
Unbelievably tough road games. I mean, in the AFC, those are games you look at, you're not supposed to win. You start winning, and then you start winning your home games. All of a sudden, you're right there in the mix for the playoffs. So, as a Titans fan, you're happy, but you're also, it's bittersweet because you should be 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to take a loss, but whenever you're down on Monday, you got to at least try to find the
I know all about. Oh, don't worry, I'm always looking for this. I know
purple lining. In your
I know
case,
exactly. You might as well just call it the purple lining because I do it all the time. Like, well, we lost, but we did play better in the second half.
Moving on now to 2 teams that have fans that know exactly the pain we're talking about. Detroit Lions taking on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, Detroit did exactly what I said. They're going to come straight back to earth. God, the Cardinals. They're good enough to win.
They've got a good defense
and
a serviceable quarterback now, and a dominant wide receiver.
If they can find a running game.
Fitzgerald
is a little banged up. I'm not sure if he's going to go this week or not. I would say that he probably is.
Yeah, he's getting a little up there in age. So I mean, those injuries got to concern you a little more. It takes a little more time for him to heal. But I mean, they've got a quality shutdown defense, and as long as you can play defense, you can stay in games.
Yeah, and Detroit, this is a game, Detroit, if you're going to beat, I highlighted, all 3 NFC North teams, us, the Vikings, the Lions, and the Bears all have a chance to unseat Green Bay, I think. And then, Detroit, if you want to put them in one of those teams, this is a game they got to win. I mean, to me, they're more talented than the Cardinals. And
Reggie Bush took a helmet to the knee early in that game and kind of threw their rhythm off a little bit, so you can see they're already too dependent on him.
Oh, absolutely. Without Reggie Bush, they're back to the team they were a year ago. They're just dependent on Calvin every time.
And Reggie Bush has shown you over his career that he's not somebody that can really play 16 games.
Yeah, if he's going to be getting that many touches, you have to kind of expect him to be a little banged up. I mean, they're putting the ball in his hands over 20 times a game between catching and running, and that's just something he hasn't been able to do.
Arizona would love to have a running back at this point that they could hand the ball to 20 times.
Mendenhall, I mean, he is what he is.
Yeah, he was just mediocre in Pittsburgh, where running backs usually flourish. I think Ron Williams has the most talent on that team, but he gets injured. He gets injured every third snap. He's in Sidney Rice category by this time.
It's a mess at the running back position in Arizona. It has been for a long time. Either one of these teams could go either way. I look at these teams both as middle-of-the-road teams, so I'm not going to try to spend a whole lot of time on them. I will, however, talk a little bit about the Saints at the Buccaneers, a game that I've picked as one of my upset specials.
Yep, was your upset special last week. Almost turned out for you.
Tampa just let it go right at the end.
Did everything they could to give that game away.
They sure did. I appreciate that, Tampa, for not helping me out there. But, you look at this game on paper, and it's just one of those games. I watch a lot of NFL every year, and, you pick a lot of games. And every week there seems like there's that one game where you're just like, you just run through them. You're just like, oh, yeah, Saints are definitely going to beat the Bucs. I mean, they dominated the Falcons week 1. The Buccaneers just come off a
when you just look
horrible defeat to New York. So.
When you just look at the matchup real quick, there's always that good team, and then there's a team that's at the bottom of the league. And then you need to – but if you look at the game a little closer, break it down of all the different variables in the game, like if it's conference and where the game's being played at.
Division, they know each other. Tampa Bay and New Orleans, they play each other twice a year. It's in Tampa. Tampa always plays their divisional opponents well at home.
Their defense is nasty, too.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay's got a hell of a defense.
They do. And if they could just get something out of their quarterback at this point, it's –
I think that's not going to happen until Mike Glennon displaced DieHards' favorite backup quarterback, Mike Glennon.
I think it's funny that I've been listening to some NFL radio, and I've been hearing a lot of Tampa Bay fans and we were way ahead of the curve on this. I think Freeman.
We said that in week 2 of the preseason.
Yeah, Freeman's leash is just getting shorter and shorter. They keep losing games. Glennon will be in there by week 5 or 6.
The whole fiasco about the Freeman not being named captain and Greg Schiano possibly rigging the team voting for who team captain was because he doesn't like Freeman, and then Freeman missed the team picture, said he overslept. I mean, that's just not.
No, it's disarray.
That's prime example. He was trying to make a point against Greg Schiano. Then he made a prime example of why he shouldn't be a team captain because he overslept.
Thank you for making my point. That's what I'd be saying if I was Schiano. But New Orleans, they find a way to win. They're 2-0. The offense is making them go at this point.
No, you're loving that they're 2-0 at this point.
Yeah.
One of your favorite teams other than the Vikings.
I still just don't buy. I'm still not buying into them. I'll buy into Drew Brees all day. Like I said, for my money, I think he's one or two top best quarterbacks in the game. But
they've got another one of those Alabama bust running backs. Mark Ingram has just been horrible.
Yeah, I'm just not. I can't buy into that D. I know their D's played solid the first 2 weeks. I can't buy into that defense and their running game to make them to sit here and say they're elite.
Yeah, it's still a defense that gave up 7,000 yards last year. It wasn't like they had a total overhaul or anything.
Yeah, and they did play well week 1 defense against Atlanta, but this week they were playing Tampa Bay, who was absolutely anemic.
That's also week 1. It takes the offenses a little while to get into tune.
Defense is always ahead.
I think they got lucky that they had Atlanta in week 1, personally.
Yeah, that's about all the time I'm going to spend on that game. And another game we won't spend much time on at all since the network apologized for airing the game.
Oh, great.
Jacksonville at Oakland.
Yeah, I would. If this game was going on in the backyard, I would close my window.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, it's one positive. If you want to take a purple lining out of the game, I guess you could say Terrell Pryor for Oakland. I mean, if you're an Oakland fan, you have to be somewhat excited that Terrell Pryor sparked your team a little bit.
Also, their defense has kept them in the games the first couple of weeks. I mean, granted, the Jags scored 2 points the week before. So, if
your defense can't keep you in the game with the Jaguars, you probably need to just go ahead and play in the CFL.
Yeah, you might want to downgrade to maybe the Pac-10 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately for me, Chad Henne did not prove to be any better than Blaine Gabbert. And then the Jaguars fans have resorted to having I can't say his name because I said I would never say it again.
It's that guy that tries to play quarterback but can't throw.
Yeah, I mean, even God's turned on him at this point, but he still has a loyal group of fans down in Jacksonville, evidently. That,
all 17 of them that showed up for the We Want Him rally for Jacksonville. No, I don't think that's going to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, literally, there's more people in the studio right now than we're at the Tebow rally. So
apparently, we're having a Tebow rally right now.
I just said his name. I can't believe it. I apologize.
God's going to rain down on this program again.
I'm sorry.
Lights are going to start flickering.
Let's go ahead. Instead of bringing in God, let's bring in our most interesting correspondent, I guess you could say. We kept him caged up this week and kept him the hell out of the studio.
Yeah, no more studio visits from Undead Al.
No more. It got kind of dangerous in here last week. But let's go ahead and get Undead Al's take on his Oakland Raiders.
The one guy that wants to talk about this game.
This is Kenny the Snake Stabler here, reporting for the Displaced DieHards podcast. I'm here with Al Davis. Now, Al, I love you like a father, man. We go way back, man. Ever since the Raiders won the Super Bowl, just win, baby. We created that term. But Al, let me ask you a question. Are you happy with the Raiders this week?
We just win, baby.
That's right. Just win, baby. Just win. That's right. Silver and black all the way, baby. All right, now, Al, a lot of people in the media, They try to say that the Raiders organization's running a lot smoother since you're not in charge, making the bad picks. What do you got to say to that?
No.
Keep him back. Handlers, keep him back. Keep him away from me. I got one more question. I've always wanted to know. It's been eating at me. It's been eating and eating at me. Did Marcus Allen really sleep with your daughter? Oh, Jesus Christ! This is King the Snake Stabler. We're at Displaced DieHards podcast. Get him off me! Jesus!
Wow. Thank you, Kenny the Snake Stabler, for taking that
awesome
dangerous
guest.
assignment for us. We didn't want Undead Al in the studio anymore, and Kenny the Snake stepped up, interviewed him for us. He found out what a dangerous process that is.
It might be Undead Kenny the Snake Stabler after this week. I think Undead Al might have got his hands on him.
Yeah, it sounded like Undead Al bit him there, so we might have another zombie join us next week. But,
we'll get you an update on him.
Moving on, Colin Kaepernick looked like a zombie this week.
He sure did.
As we're moving on to San Francisco taking on Seattle with that Seattle home field advantage.
You said it was worth 14, and you were right on the money.
Yeah, I mean that's Seattle home field advantage. The way they built that stadium and the way the fans know that I think the fans get louder because they know that they can cause effect to the opposing team.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle had them rattled from the beginning. It was an ugly, ugly game right up until the end, and Seattle just imposed their will on them right there towards the end.
Yeah, I guess that weather delay they had an hour and a half weather delay because of lightning, which seems like I remember like one of those in my previous 30 years of watching.
Like 3 or 4 this
NFL.
year.
Yeah, now there's been 3 or 4 of them, which it actually worked out well. Kind of spaced out the earlier game with Tampa Bay and New Orleans. It lasted right up until the kickoff of San Fran Seattle. So I like that one.
Yeah,
but I mean Seattle, like we said, they're dominant at home. Their defensive backfield. They like to say teams look impressive coming off the bus, and Seattle's defensive backs are people you could send off the bus first and intimidate people.
Yeah,
I mean, those defensive backs, that's what makes Seattle. That's the
just
backbone.
Nasty, yeah, they are. And Russell Wilson, he just looks like a veteran out there.
He doesn't make mistakes.
No.
I mean, he looks like somebody's been playing 10 years.
Yeah, you have to be impressed with Seattle. I mean, like I said before, I'm not a Seattle Seahawks fan. I'm not a Pete Carroll
Minnesota
fan.
West.
I mean, but I mean, you have to tip your cap, or you have to give credit where credit's due. This team looks. I mean, besides maybe Denver, they look to be the team to beat. We've said that all along.
If they win 12, 13 games and get home field advantage, I don't see anybody beating them.
They're
going to the Super Bowl if they get home field advantage. It's that easy.
That's why this game was so big. And people are like, well, it's just week 2. It's early in the season. But, I mean, when it comes down to, you look back, go to week 15 or 16, and you look back, this game is going to have huge bearings. I mean, if they would have lost this game at home, that would have put them behind the 8 ball. So jump out on San Fran early is a good way to start.
They were the ones under pressure. They had to defend the home field because they know they got to go to San Fran and play eventually again sometime this year. So, I mean, they did their part. Now San Fran's got to beat them, or Seattle's got an obvious advantage.
Yeah, speaking of defending your home field, the Bengals defended their home field against the Steelers this week, who once again looked pretty bad offensively.
Yeah, they've got nobody to run the ball. They've got a bunch of guys that should be a third string running back on the team, and they're trying to make them all their first string running back to carry the load. And Ben Roethlisberger, like we mentioned numerous times, him and Todd Haley's process of calling plays doesn't work. I mean, you've either got to decide if you want Haley and go a different direction with your offense and trade Roethlisberger for a nice set of draft picks, or you've got to fire Haley and bring in somebody that's going to call games for Roethlisberger.
You got to fire Haley from a guy that's won a couple Super Bowls for your franchise.
Yeah, that's the obvious one, but you also got to look. Ben Roethlisberger's up over 30 and has been destroyed his whole career. So I mean, if you
had no faith in Todd Haley. I feel like he's very overrated. He's been a joke pretty much everywhere he's gone.
If you can get the King's ransom like Cincinnati did for Carson Palmer from the
Raiders
for Roethlisberger, I think you've got to look at that.
Yeah, considering their offense is already in pretty much disarray,
the whole team
it wouldn't be a bad idea just to blow it up and start over.
The whole team, they've got age working against them. I mean, that's the only way That's the only way to quickly rebuild that is to take one of your key pieces that you have that's a quality piece right now and turn that into 2 or 3 draft picks to help the rest of your team.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to go. If you flip it over to Cincinnati, speaking of a couple draft picks, they had huge impacts. Tyler Eifert, the tight end out of Notre Dame, and then Giovanni Bernard, the Counts boy,
Yep.
showed out.
If you listen to the Count Sleepers section on the fantasy football special of the Displaced DieHards podcast, he told you to pick Giovanni Bernard, and he's looking like a playmaker out there. He totally opens up that offense differently than the law firm.
Perfect change of pace. I still like the law firm in his role that he's in.
Law firm had a good game, too.
Oh,
he had
yeah.
like 70 hard-earned rushing yards
Right.
like you expect the law firm to have.
Yeah, he's not going to be a fantasy beast or anything, but for an actual role player in a reality football game, then yes, he's exactly the kind of change of pace back you want with Giovanni Bernard.
And those two tight ends, like we've touched on a couple times in the season, I think they give them a good dynamic.
Oh,
It opens up the field. The Steelers decided to play a cornerback and Palomalu basically on A.J. Green all night, and it just opened up the field for Eifert and Gresham to show what they got.
Big-time weapons there in the middle. We highlighted that. If you want to cover A.J. Green like the Steelers did last night, they're going to beat you with the tight ends. As long as Dalton shows up, they're going to be tough.
They've got so many weapons now. It's a pick your poison with them.
It really is. And they're deep. They're deep stout too. I mean,
if you try to take the two tight ends out of the game, you'll see like in week 1, whenever A.J. Green goes off and has 2 touchdowns in a big game. So I mean, if their running game's going, then there's no stopping the Bengals. The only thing that can stop them is Andy Dalton making bad decisions.
That's the key. He's got to win. He's got, like I said, he's got to find a way to win those division games on the road.
He was off in that Monday night game. He was selling a lot of passes. They were shadowing A.J. Green quite a bit, and he was finding open space, and he missed them a couple times on just bad throws.
Yeah, Dalton's going to be the key. He hasn't really looked great to start the season, but the Bengals have been right there. They had a chance to beat the Bears. They're right there, right there at the end. But let's move on to the Giants.
Speaking of a
Denver.
quarterback that's looked great, Peyton Manning looks like he's definitely got that offense moving better. They're the best offense in the league right now, in my opinion.
Fine wine is what comes to mind when you think of Peyton Manning.
He's just so smart out there. I mean, he doesn't have the strongest arm anymore, but he just knows where to put players and what play to call when. He looks at the defense. They were saying they had Tony Dungy on Dan Patrick, and they were saying he uses a lot of hand signals, and whenever he faces teams that's got a lot of players that played for him previously, like he'll overcompensate and think about everything that they could possibly use against him, and he'll make the hand signals. He'll still do the hand signals, but he'll have a signal before that's not a hand signal to tell his current players not to use those hand signals. He just plays a game of chess.
Like a third base
there.
coach, exactly.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, the only question I have about Denver's offense is why, if you're the owner of the Denver Broncos, why are you even wasting your bank account paying an offensive coordinator at this point? Because Peyton Manning is the offensive coordinator. He walks up to the line of scrimmage and he tells each individual player what their job is on that individual play and how they can beat the defense every single time. It's just a matter of executing it.
Take a picture of John Fox during the whole Tebow era, and then take a picture of him now with Peyton Manning on his side, and you'll see a totally different head coach. You see somebody loving life.
Yeah, the Denver Broncos, as of right now, when they're playing great ball right now. They don't even have Champ Bailey and Von Miller in the game.
Yeah, the two best defensive players aren't in the game, and they still look like the best team in the league.
Yeah, as of right now, unless something goes wrong injury-wise or something, which Clady did go down.
Clady went
that's
down.
Something to look for.
Like we said, the most important thing when you have Peyton Manning is a good offensive line, because everything runs through him. If he goes down, that's 10 losses.
Yeah, you have to protect him. You have to, and he gets the ball out so fast. I don't even know that it's going to matter, to be honest with you.
I heard the Broncos were hoping for only 2 to 4 weeks, and then Clady came out and said that he thinks it might be a season ender.
We'll have to keep an eye on it.
A foot injury on a big guy is always going to take a long time to heal.
Also, I think Noshawn Marino is really giving him that running back they can depend on.
Somebody that Manning trusts, that he knows not going to fumble the ball or tip the ball up in the air on a short pass. He's just somebody that can go in there and get the job done. And I mean, Peyton Manning makes a very average running back a very good running back because of the way defense have had to play Manning.
Yeah, they tried to go with Bell. Was it Bell early in the game, and then he fumbled into the end zone?
Yeah, and Hillman had his own problems throughout preseason with fumbles. So I mean, Moreno he's
a trustworthy guy. You have to have a guy in there who you trust, and Marino's that guy.
You got fumble problems, it changes the whole way you run. Just look at David Wilson. He's trying to run out there with two hands on the ball, and he's running like a 5-second 40 out there with that speed.
Yeah, it's the Giants. The Giants don't look very good. I mean, their defense is a mess at this point, and Eli's not playing horribly, but I mean he doesn't have. He
has those 2 or 3 horrible plays every game, though.
That really set him back.
That one into his own end zone, they were about to score a touchdown, and he let the ball oversell his receiver by 5 yards, and it was the interception. He just does that all the time.
We're just not used to seeing the Giants in disarray, like complete disarray that they're in right now. I mean, Coughlin's a master of riding the ship, so we'll see if he can get it done. But they have their work cut out for them. The Giants have always depended on the running game, and they just don't have one.
Yeah, I mean, they brought in Brendan Jacobs out of retirement like I was wanting to do with Brian Dawkins. Anytime you're bringing former legends out of retirement, you're not in a good spot. Well, they're definitely flying high down there in Denver these days. It's not just because of the legal marijuana. It's because of their football team, the Denver Broncos. So, I mean, they look like the best team in football. It's pretty easy to predict that they're the top team in the AFC. So we're going to go ahead and go into our Week 3 predictions. But before we get into that, I'll give you the results for Week 2. Stephen A. Turner checks in at 10-6 on the week.
A little better.
Overall, 19-13 on the season. I checked in at 12-4, 22-10 on the season, and the casual fan checked in at 0-1, and he's 0-2 on the season.
Yeah, and I'm 0-2 with him in those games, and you're 1-1.
Yeah, I actually got that one right. My boy Fat Ass got me the win on that one.
That's right. Now, let's go ahead. And speaking of which, that's a perfect transition. We're going to go ahead and kick it off with Fat Ass's return to Philly as the Eagles host the Chiefs. I'm going to go ahead and roll with the Eagles in this game. It's going to be an emotional game. It could go either way. I'm going to go ahead and hope that the Eagles' defense performs a little better than they did last week.
I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this game just based on reality. I'm sick of making homer picks and then with my green glasses on, and our defensive backfield can't stop anybody, and Alex Smith doesn't make mistakes. And the only way that we can stop teams is if they make mistakes. The only time we stopped the Chargers last game is when we made mistakes, and I don't think Kansas City make mistakes, so I'm picking them.
All right, well, let's head on down to Baltimore where they will host the Houston Texans. This was a tough game for me to pick. It's really a flip-flop game, go either way. I look for Baltimore to dominate the game for the first 3.5 quarters, and then Houston to steal the win out from under them right at the end like they had the first 2 weeks.
I'm going with Houston again. I'm totally selling all the stock on Baltimore. They just look like they have a lack of weapons on that team, and their defense isn't what it used to be.
All right, let's go to the Giants. They'll be heading down to Carolina to go face the Panthers on the road. I'm going to take the Giants to get their first win of the season. I'm officially jumping off the Carolina bandwagon at this point. They're going to have to show me something before I pick them again.
I'm jumping on the Carolina bandwagon here. I think the defense keeps them in the game, and I think Cam Newton has his first he's due for a breakout performance, and I don't think the Giants can stop him or D'Angelo Williams. I'm picking the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, let's head down to Paul Brown Stadium where the Bengals will play host to the Green Bay Packers, my Green Bay Packers. I'm going to go ahead and roll with, well, you know who I'm going to pick in this game. I'm taking the Bengals, and Giovanni Bernard run wild over the Green Bay Packers this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm going with Cincinnati. I like their defense, and they're at home.
Wow. All right. Let's move on down to.
I don't always pick Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I mean, it's hard not to, but when you're a Vikings fan, it actually becomes a lot easier. You head on down to AT&T Field, I guess it is, AT&T Field in Dallas. They're gonna
Jerry's World.
That's right, Jerry's World, where they're going to host the St. Louis Rams. I actually have Dallas picked on my sheet here. I'm gonna flip-flop. I'm going to pull a John Kerry and flip-flop, and I'm going to take the Rams because the Rams always beat the Cowboys. And
those are your St. Louis Rams as well.
My St. Louis Rams. My
I'm going
playoff-bound St. Louis Rams.
I'm going with your St. Louis Rams as well just because.
How about it?
Jeff Fisher versus Jason Garrett, advantage Rams.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit I jumped off Dallas bandwagon a little bit with the 14 carries versus Kansas City. You got to do better than that, Callahan. But
I've never been on the Cowboys bandwagon. Been trying to blow that sumbitch up.
Let's go to the beginning of the end of one of the more historic stadiums in the history of all of the NFL, the Homer Dome, the Metrodome, so to speak, the Mall of America Field. They're going to be hosting, the Minnesota Vikings are going to be hosting the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, I'm going to roll with the Vikings in this game, correct? I mean, I'm not high on the weed anymore. I'm been clean and sober for 6 days.
Yeah, I'm going with Minnesota in this one because Cleveland's no longer high on the weed either because Whedon's going to miss this game with an injured thumb.
That scares the hell out of me, by the way. Backup quarterbacks, Minnesota don't mix.
Struggles with backup quarterbacks.
It could be anybody. They put David Carr in the game, and he throws for 400 yards.
Like Tom Brady.
Yeah, so Jason Campbell, suit up, buddy. But let's head down to home of Hurricane Katrina. The New Orleans Saints will host the Cardinals, your Honey Badger-led Cardinals. I'm actually going to take the Saints this week for the first time. I think that they're just too strong at home for the Cardinals.
I'm rolling with my Cardinals again.
Oh. Nice. Upset special.
I'm sticking with that defense. I'm not sold on New Orleans defense. I think Carson Palmer can put up some points against that New Orleans defense, and I'm taking the Cardinals.
All right, let's head on down to the home of country music, Nashville, Tennessee, where the Tennessee Titans are going to be playing host to the San Diego Superchargers. And I actually had San Diego penciled into this game until Mr. Ill Bill Hardesty swung his tennis racket at me over here, so I switched my pick. I'm taking Jake Locker, the Tennessee Titans, to prevail over Phillip Rivers.
I just watched San Diego roll up and down the field on the Eagles after they rolled up and down the field for the first 3 quarters on Houston, so I'm taking San Diego.
All righty, let's go up to hopefully Robert Griffin III actually decides to show up for this game. I don't know that he will.
Hopefully not.
They're gonna be playing host to the Detroit Lions this week. I've actually got Washington penciled in to take their first win.
Not a shot with that high octane offense that Detroit has, and the Washington Redskins defense couldn't stop a toddler on a tricycle to borrow a line from Drunk Bernie. So I'm taking the Lions.
I always try to wash out what happened last week because every time I try to go off what happened a week ago, I end up getting my ass handed to me in the pick. So the Washington pick is just straight up thinking they're going to look like a different team this week. But anyway, let's head down to Miami, South Beach. The Counts Falcons will be flying into town to take on the Miami Dolphins. I've actually got the Falcons winning this game.
Yep, I've got the Falcons and the Counts staying off suicide watch this week. Give me the Falcons.
All right, and let's go up to New York, New Meadowland Stadium, where my New York Jets will host the Buffalo Bills, and E.J. Manuel coming off a huge win last week. I actually don't have a winner picked in this game. It looks like I'm going to have to pick this game on the fly.
It's because you never hear about the Jets. So
I know. I don't know nothing about them. ESPN never talks about the Jets, so I guess I'm going to have to roll with Buffalo.
I'm going with the Jets to get their first win against another rookie quarterback.
All right, let's go out to the West Coast where the 49ers coming off a major ass whooping last week are going to be very, very upset. They're going to be hosting Jim Irsay's led Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, Jimmy Harbaugh doesn't like getting his ass kicked like that, and he's going to come out ferociously. And I think Colin Kaepernick, even though he might not have any eyebrows when he comes out for the game, is going to come out on fire and light up the Indianapolis D. Give me San Fran at home.
Yeah, I'm taking San Fran at home in the reunion of the Stanford players in San Fran. I'm taking San Fran big over Indy. I think they're going to roll right over top of them. Then another game, I'm going to take a team big. You go up to the 12th man, home of the 12th man. Seattle Seahawks are hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it doesn't matter Blaine Gabbert, Chad Henne, Seneca Wallace, Denard Robinson. It don't matter who's
Mark
Brunell is not walking through that door anytime soon. Seattle will win this game. I think they're favored by like 4 touchdowns in this game, and I wouldn't be hard-pressed to put the money on Seattle at this point.
If local Jacksonville television was apologizing for having to show Jaguar games when they're on the road, wait till they get a load of this game because Seattle's going to come in there and stomp them out. Probably, I'm going to predict by at least 28.
All right, let's head up to the big ketchup bottle in Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Steelers looking to get their first win against a team who's trying to stay undefeated on the season, the Chicago Bears. And the Bears have been somewhat impressive through the first 2 weeks, and I don't think Pittsburgh has enough offense to compete. I'm going to take Jay Cutler-led Chicago Bears.
This is that game for me that stood out that might be the shocker of the week. For some reason, Pittsburgh at home against Chicago just seems like an old-school battle, and Pittsburgh, for some reason, just jumped out at me. It's going to be the national TV
to
game.
Respond.
Late at night at 7:30 p.m. It's the late-night game. A lot of weird things happen on those games. The better team generally doesn't show up whenever they're on the road late on a primetime game, so give me Pittsburgh.
All right, let's go to the Mile High, up high sea levels. They're going to be hosting their AFC West rival Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, thanks a lot, ESPN, for putting this game on Monday Night Football.
What is up with the Monday night games?
Undead Al running the production on Monday Night Football.
This game will be like 70-3 by halftime. I'm take Peyton Manning. He may throw for more than 7 touchdowns in this game.
Yep, Undead Al's not in the studio to influence my picks, so give me Denver.
And rounding out the picks for Week 3, Tampa Bay Buccaneers are heading up to New England, and I don't have a whole lot to add on this game. I'm just going to say that New England finds another way to win. They find at least one receiver, Julian Edelman, that can catch the ball. If Gronk plays, maybe that'll help them, but I don't see Tampa Bay making the trip to New England up there and beating them.
Yeah, I don't think Tampa Bay has the offense to win in New England, even though New England's lacking the weapons on offense, like we've touched on. Give me the Patriots to win it out again, and start somehow 3-0. They got the luck. They got the best luck in the NFL. I mean, their team is team's basically garbage right now, and they're 3-0, and then they're going to get Gronkowski back.
Yeah, they're down and they're playing the soft part of their schedule. So that congratulations, Belichick. But another guy who might have an opinion on this game, he's 0-2. He's looking to get off the schneid. It's the casual fan.
Hello, friends. The Casual Fan Reporter checking in once again here on the Displaced DieHards podcast. Available on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and now can be seen Saturday nights at 10 p.m. on Time Warner Cable's Public Access, channel number 72 in Owensboro, Kentucky. I'm here to discuss Week 3's tough call matchup on the NFL schedule and provide analysis and insight that only I, the Casual Fan Reporter, can bring. I'm also trying my best to keep my brave face on after yet another crushing and disappointing pick that occurred in Week 2. You know, I thought Cowboys were tougher than that. Am I to believe that all those Hollywood Westerns were a crock of baloney? I mean, the one time the government doesn't step in and impose its gross abuse of power against the Native American culture, I take the brunt on my official NFL picks. I mean, come on! I've got to look legit here, man. Anyway, my Week 3 pick is between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who will travel north along the eastern seaboard, sailing the high seas to New England, where apparently a large group of very patriotic soldiers have banded together in declaration that their land shall not be pirated by a bunch of scurvy sea legs looking to pillage their homes and ravage their women, then leave with all their riches and doubloons or whatever the hell the pirates call things of value these days. Honestly, I just don't understand the psychology of it all. Tampa Bay is a warm water locale. Why would you want to start an epic sea battle with people who live in an area notorious for bitter weather? I know it's not the dead of winter yet, but if you try and sail north to battle men who have the advantage of land and cold water, you're asking for a rigid bloodbath. So with that in mind, I'm taking the New England Patriots in this fight. Oh, sure, maybe when you get to Cape Cod, you can keep your distance from the shore and use an aerial attack with cannons, but somehow, some way, Captain Brady will find a way to, late in the battle, overtake the opposition, like he always does, ultimately forcing the pirates from the south to retreat back to sea. It's just not a good battle plan for a group of people from a tropical climate to try and set up a large-scale attack that is to take place hundreds of miles away in a much cooler climate. These fellas from Tampa Bay, they don't know a damn thing about a frosty winter morn or having to wear a jacket, for God's sake. Personally, I just don't see too many of these pirates surviving the battle due to not totally being prepared. I mean, have you ever packed for a vacation to somewhere where you thought it was going to be nice and warm, then you get there and you freeze your giblets off because you only packed 2 pairs of shorts, a Hawaiian shirt, and not a damn pair of long underwear? It happens. Anyway, this is the Casual Fan Reporter signing off saying, keep listening, keep watching, and above all else, don't pick fights with cold weather soldiers when you know damn well you're just a beach bum from Florida. Later. Hey, got a joke for you. Farmer selling corn on the side of the road. Man stops and asks, how much? Farmer says, about a buccaneer. Get it? Buccaneer? Okay.
All right, thank you, Casual Fan, for your input on the upcoming game. I mean, he's trying to get off the schneid here. He's got the big goose egg for his predictions, but we're going to go ahead and keep giving him a shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's going with the Patriots. We both went with the Patriots, so we'll see how he rolls this week.
Moving on now, it's time for the Fantasy Sit-Start edition of our show. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off with my number 1 must-start. I'm going to go ahead and go with Matthew Stafford, who's facing that much-heralded Washington defense, who tends to give up about 40 points by halftime. So go ahead and start Matthew Stafford. That's
a good one. I don't know why you would bench him. I mean, maybe you're down on him after last week's game, but I'm going to go with Kaepernick after the way he performed last week. If you drafted a guy to maybe take his place off the bench, you don't want to bench him this week. He's going to be playing angry.
Yeah, don't overanalyze last week's games and think that just because Kaepernick couldn't get it done at Seattle against the best defensive backfield that he's going to take a huge step back and only put up like 5 points again. He's going to be a must-start anytime that he's not playing Seattle, pretty much is what he's proved.
Yep, I agree.
I'm going with Dwayne Bowe as my number 2 must-start. He's playing the Philly defense, who I've told you they couldn't cover Owensboro High School's wide receivers at this point.
Yeah, I got a tight end for you. If you're low on tight ends, you need somebody to plug in the lineup. Maybe he's out there, maybe not. Martellus Bennett versus Pittsburgh. He performed well versus the Vikings in Pittsburgh, gave up quite a bit into the tight ends in Cincinnati, so that's a guy you could look at.
Yeah, they're starting to look at him more. He's working his way into that offense a little
Definitely.
bit. A guy that I'm expecting to finally find his way in the offense this week is Cam Newton against the New York Giants. I think he's due for a 35-point game against that defense.
He is due. Speaking of quarterbacks, I got both quarterbacks in the KC Philly game, especially Alex Smith. If you have a quarterback who is facing a bad matchup, Alex Smith could be a good waiver wire pickup.
Yeah, if you got somebody that's playing, for instance, the Seahawks defense again, then you're going to want to set that quarterback and pick up Alex Smith because, like we've said, Philly can't guard Owensboro Catholic.
Yeah, and Michael Vick too on the other side. I mean, I've started. I have Russell Wilson and Michael Vick, and I've started Vick both weeks, and he scored big points. So Vick is definitely a guy who's paying off in the late rounds.
Yeah, if you use the strategy of waiting for a quarterback late in the draft, and then use Michael Vick with like the 9th round pick to get your quarterback, you're having a pretty good fantasy football season right now.
That's right.
Speaking of guys now that's not having such a great season, going to go keep it moving to the fantasy sit starts. I got RG3, and the reason I have in big bold letters is he can't run.
Yeah, we've highlighted that already. Until he proves it, you're probably going to want to bench him in fantasy when you get to this point, week 3, and he hasn't done anything. Actually, he put up decent numbers week 1 in garbage time, but you're going to want him to prove it before you stick him in there. I've actually got Andrew Luck as my number 1 sit versus the Niners D. They're going to, like I said, they're going to be playing angry, and I look for them to take it out on Andrew Luck.
Another good defense that I've got based around my sit is Mark Ingram, the running back for the Saints. He's been a bust all season, and this week he's going to go up against my Arizona Cardinals defense led by the Honey Badgers, so sit Mark Ingram.
Yeah, the only running back you ever want to take a flyer on in fantasy football from New Orleans is Sproles, and that's in a PPR league. I went with the defense to set this week. One of the top fantasy defenses I saw taken in most drafts is the Bengals D. I'd probably set them down versus Aaron Rodgers. Even though I took the Bengals to win the game, I expected Aaron Rodgers is going to get his. So Bengals D is definitely a sit this week.
Speaking of Green Bay Packers, I've got James Jones on my must-set list because he's that guy in the NFL that you'll start him 1 week, he'll give you 3 points or even 0 points like he did in week 1, and then you'll get pissed off, bench him, and
what happened.
He'll go put up 38 points, and then
thank you, James Jones.
And then this week you're like, well, he just scored 38 points. I must start him. Then you start him, and he'll score you 4.
Yeah, I don't have him starting again this week.
Don't let him do that to you again.
I don't trust him. He's gonna have to do it, consecutive weeks before I get him back in my lineup. I've got Cecil Shorts, my boy. Cecil Shorts is going to be on the sit list for me this week. I mean, how can you not? He's put up solid numbers with horrible quarterback play, but this week he's going up against the best cornerbacks in the game in Seattle.
Setting his boy Cecil Shorts. The world must be coming to the end. That's his boy.
What that means is sit him. That means don't play him because I've been on his bandwagon all offseason.
Well, I don't know if the world's coming to an end, but our show here is coming to an end, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Remind you can download our podcast every Friday at www.displacediehards.com. Check us out on Twitter at DieHards Podcast. Check us out on Facebook /DisplacedDieHards. Check out the full show if you don't have Time Warner Cable. You can watch our full show and individual clips of our segment on YouTube at YouTube /DisplacedDieHards. Listen to the podcast, as always, on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. And you can watch our television show every Saturday, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time on Time Warner Cable Channel 72.
Yippee-ki-yay. Displaced DieHards.
Displaced DieHards.
I am a displaced diehard.
I am a displaced diehard.
We are Displaced DieHards.